is not the promise of comfort, nor is it the guarantee of ease. It is instead the announcement of responsibility. When you hear the words, God has chosen you, your first response should not be to celebrate as though you've won a lottery. It should be to pause, to tremble even slightly, because to be chosen means that something vast, something beyond your comprehension, has placed its hand upon your life and whispered, "Now you must act." Most people dream of being chosen because they confuse it with being favored. They think divine selection is a kind of spiritual endorsement, a sign that they are more special than others. But that's the wrong way to see it. Being chosen isn't an escape from struggle. It's a deeper invitation into it. It means the path before you will become narrower, steeper, more demanding. It means your life will not be your own in the way it once was, because your choices will now carry greater weight. Your words will have greater consequence, and your silence will be harder to justify. There's a story buried in every great tradition, religious, philosophical, even psychological, that points to this truth. When the divine calls a person, that call is never for leisure. It's a summons to serve. Think of Moses, terrified before the burning bush. Think of Jonah running from his destiny. Think of Mary, who said yes knowing that her yes would pierce her heart. The moment you realize that you have been chosen is also the moment you must decide whether you will carry that burden or flee from it. And if you run, you will never escape the echo of that calling, because the voice that calls you is not from outside. It's from the deepest part of your being. To be chosen means that something within you aligns with the possibility of redemption, not just for yourself, but for the world around you. God does not choose the comfortable, He chooses the willing. And willingness is a terrifying thing. It means stepping forward into uncertainty. It means accepting that your life will no longer be dictated by your convenience, but by your commitment. You will be tested, not because you are cursed, but because refinement only comes through fire. Gold doesn't shine without heat. The soul doesn't mature without conflict. If you see this message before October 17, perhaps it's not an accident. Perhaps it's a reminder that you've been drifting too long, waiting for something external to move you. Maybe this is the moment you stop waiting. Being chosen doesn't mean you've been given everything you need. It means you've been entrusted with the potential to become what is needed. The difference is enormous. One is passive, the other transformative. When God chooses someone, He does not hand them a finished plan. He places them at the edge of chaos and says, "Bring order." He gives them a glimpse of what could be and waits to see if they'll have the courage to manifest it. That's the weight of being chosen, to know that your actions, no matter how small, participate in the creation or destruction of meaning. Every time you lie, you contribute to decay. Every time you tell the truth, you build something sacred. So if you feel that quiet pull, that sense that life is asking more of you, don't dismiss it. Don't bury it under distraction or cynicism. That feeling is not arrogance or delusion, it's a summons. You are being asked to grow, to carry something larger than your comfort zone, to live a story worth the struggle. To be chosen is not to be praised, It is to be tasked. It is the greatest honor and the greatest challenge. And the question that remains is not whether God has chosen you, but whether you will choose to answer. October 17 is not just a date on the calendar. It is a threshold, a symbolic line drawn between what you were and what you could become. Time, after all, is not simply the ticking of a clock. It's a moral structure. There are moments when everything that has been quietly forming beneath the surface of your life begins to push upward, demanding recognition. Those moments are rare, and if you see them clearly, they mark the turning points of your existence. So when you hear, if you see this before October 17, God has chosen you, understand that this is not superstition. It is a metaphor for awakening, a call to stop drifting and start deciding. Deadlines, whether earthly or divine, are what make life meaningful. Without them, we would postpone everything. Responsibility, growth, repentance, truth. We would float aimlessly in comfort, waiting for a better time that never arrives. But when a date is set, even symbolically, it compresses your choices into urgency. It forces you to act. And that's what October 17 represents, a reminder that time is not infinite, and the chance to become what you must become will not last forever. There's something profoundly spiritual about recognizing that time is limited. When you know a moment is passing, you pay attention. You wake up. You stop assuming tomorrow will always come. You stop treating your soul like it's something you can tend to later. The tragedy of modern life is that we treat eternity as though it's a renewable resource. We imagine that meaning will find us when we're ready, that destiny will wait politely while we waste our hours. But it doesn't. Meaning is impatient. It knocks only a few times, and if you ignore it long enough, the sound fades. Perhaps October 17, in this context, is the day meaning knocks. It's the day you either open the door or turn away. The choice doesn't just shape your schedule, it shapes your soul. Because every decision is a small rehearsal for eternity. When you decide to ignore your callings, you train yourself in apathy. When you respond, you train yourself in courage. And each small act of courage prepares you for the larger responsibilities that will come. This is why symbolic deadlines matter. They give form to our invisible commitments. Without a clear line in time, transformation remains a fantasy, something we talk about but never do. But when you mark a day, you turn an idea into an appointment with reality. That's what faith looks like in action, not vague hope, but specific obedience. You say, by this moment I will begin. I will step forward. I will no longer hide behind hesitation. And when you do, life rearranges itself around that decision. If you see this before October 17, maybe that's your appointed time. Maybe it's the whisper of destiny saying, you still have a window, because one day the window will close, the opportunity will vanish, and you'll realize that the cost of delay was far higher than the cost of effort. You were meant to rise, to create, to restore something broken. And the date on the calendar is just a way of waking you up to that truth. God does not speak through thunder every time. Sometimes He speaks through timing, through coincidence, through a strange message that finds you at the right moment. And if that message stirs something in you, if it makes you stop, even for a second, then you should take it seriously. That steering is not random. It's your spirit remembering that it was made for more than survival. So do not treat October 17 as a superstition. Treat it as a mirror. Ask yourself what part of your life is waiting for renewal, what dream has been buried, what truth you've avoided. Then make that the day you begin again. Because in the grand rhythm of creation, there are moments when heaven leans closer and offers you a choice. When that happens, the question isn't whether God has chosen you. The question is whether you will choose to respond before the moment passes forever. Faith has never been about blind belief. It is not a soft cushion against the hardness of life. Faith is the disciplined act of seeing what is possible and then stepping toward it, even when every visible sign tells you not to. It is the courage to act when certainty is impossible. And that is where responsibility enters the picture. Because faith without responsibility is nothing more than wishful thinking. You can say that you believe all you want, but until you bear the weight of that belief through action, it remains hollow, untested and inert. To say that God has chosen you is to acknowledge that faith is not just something you possess. It's something you must embody. You are not chosen to admire the idea of goodness, but to live it. That means your choices, your discipline, your integrity become the expression of your faith. It's easy to speak of divine favor when life feels generous. It's much harder to act faithfully when the world seems indifferent or even hostile to your purpose. But that's the measure of true faith. Not how loud it is when the sun shines, but how steady it remains in the dark. Faith and responsibility are bound together like two sides of a coin. You cannot have one without the other. Faith gives you the vision, responsibility gives you the structure to make that vision real. Faith says, this can be. Responsibility says, then I must act. Without that second part, faith dissolves into self-deception, a comfortable illusion that never changes anything. Real faith always demands movement. It calls you out of your comfort and into the unknown. It doesn't ask for your opinion, it asks for your obedience. The act of believing, then, is the act of aligning yourself with order amidst chaos. It's not merely trusting that things will work out, but accepting your duty to help make them work out. God doesn't choose people so they can rest in security. He chooses them so they can labor in purpose. To be chosen means to join in the ongoing work of creation, to take responsibility for your part of the world and make it a little more truthful, a little more, just a little more beautiful. You can't separate faith from action without killing both. If you say you believe in love but refuse to forgive, then your faith is hypocrisy. If you say you believe in truth but remain silent in the face of lies, your faith is cowardice. If you say you believe in destiny but spend your life drifting, then your faith is nothing but noise. Faith must take form through responsible living, through the courage to stand upright even when you're surrounded by pressure to bow down. And this is what it means to be chosen. Not that you have been spared from hardship, but that you have been invited to bear it with dignity. Faith gives you the vision of what could be. Responsibility gives you the strength to bring it into being. Without faith, life becomes mechanical and hollow. Without responsibility, faith becomes sentimental and powerless. But together, they form the foundation of meaning. There's a kind of beauty in that unity. The realization that belief alone is never enough. You are meant to build what you believe. You are meant to participate in the redemption of the world, however small your corner of it might be. That's why every act of discipline, every honest word, every promise kept, every temptation resisted is a sacred offering. It's faith made visible. So if you feel chosen, understand what that truly implies. It means you have been called to live as though your actions matter, because they do. It means you can no longer afford to be passive, to hide behind indecision or cynicism. To have faith is to shoulder responsibility with both hands and to say, even if I am uncertain, I will move forward. Even if I am afraid, I will act in truth. That's what transforms belief into power. That's what turns divine calling into human purpose. And that's how faith becomes the bridge between heaven's intention and the world's redemption. When you look at the life and ministry of Yonggi Cho, you don't just see a man who believed in God. You see a man who understood the creative power of vision. He built one of the largest congregations in the world, not because he possessed extraordinary resources or privilege, but because he learned that faith begins in the imagination and is sustained through disciplined action. Vision was not for him a pleasant dream. It was the blueprint of destiny. He believed that what you continually hold in your spirit with sincerity and endurance begins to shape the world around you. That's not a shallow motivational slogan. It's a profound spiritual principle. You become what you fix your eyes on. To be chosen, then, is to be invited into that same creative partnership. It's to recognize that your thoughts, your words, and your perseverance participate in the unfolding of God's will. Vision, in that sense, is sacred. It's not just something you conjure up for personal success. It's something you receive, something entrusted to you. It's a whisper from the divine saying, there is something that must exist, and I will bring it through you. And that's both awe, inspiring and terrifying, because it means your life carries a creative responsibility. What you imagine and nurture internally has real consequences externally. Yongi Cho often spoke about incubating faith, holding on to a vision with persistence until it manifests. That process mirrors the nature of the divine creation itself. God speaks into the void and something appears. But for human beings, creation requires patience and suffering. You hold a vision while the world gives you 1,000 reasons to abandon it. You wake up each day confronted by what is, yet you carry within you a clear picture of what could be. That tension between the visible and the invisible is where destiny is forged. And this is precisely what it means to be chosen, to stand in that space and refuse to surrender your vision even when progress feels invisible. Most people give up not because their vision was impossible, but because they couldn't endure the waiting. They mistake delay for denial. But the chosen learn that waiting is part of creation. It refines desire. It separates wish from will. It transforms hope from a feeling into a discipline. The life of vision is not for the faint-hearted. To hold a divine idea in a chaotic world requires spiritual stamina. You will face mockery, misunderstanding, and exhaustion. But that's the test. Faith is proven in endurance. If vision dies easily, it was never divine. It was ego dressed as purpose. God-given vision survives hardship because it is rooted in something larger than self-interest. It's about contributing to life, not controlling it. Every person chosen by God is called to become a co-creator, not a passive recipient of blessings, but an active participant in building meaning. The same principle that moved through Yongi Cho's ministry moves through anyone who dares to align imagination with faith and faith with effort. The divine doesn't work in isolation. It works through willing hands and steady hearts. So when you receive a vision, whether it's a calling, an idea, or a sense of moral duty, treat it with reverence. Protect it. Feed it with prayer, with discipline, with truth. Because neglect is the quickest way to betray the gift. And here lies the profound responsibility of being chosen. You are not merely saved, you are commissioned. You've been trusted with a fragment of divine possibility, something that only you can bring into the world. It could be an idea, a project, a relationship, a reform. But whatever it is, it's not random. If it was given to you, it was meant for you to build. That's the legacy Yonggi Cho left. Not just a church, but a way of seeing that God does not only speak to people, but through them. So, if you sense that you've been chosen, understand that vision will be your compass. It will lead you through darkness, give you direction in chaos, and remind you that you are part of something infinitely larger than yourself. You were not chosen for comfort. You were chosen for creation. The question is whether you will keep that vision alive long enough to see it become flesh. Whether you will nurture what God has planted in you until it becomes the blessing it was meant to be. To be chosen is to stand at the intersection of order and chaos, the two great forces that govern existence. Order is what you know, your habits, your beliefs, the structure of your life that gives you a sense of security. Chaos is everything beyond that: uncertainty, risk, pain, the unknown future that refuses to be tamed. Most people try to avoid chaos entirely, retreating into the familiar patterns of safety. But the chosen cannot afford to. Their calling exists right on that edge, where creation happens. Because nothing new is born in comfort. Everything living emerges from tension. This balance between order and chaos is the very rhythm of life itself. Too much order and you become rigid, predictable, lifeless, mechanical. Too much chaos and you dissolve, lost in confusion and despair. The chosen must learn to walk the narrow path between them, bringing structure to the unknown without becoming a slave to control. That's what faith really means, not blind obedience, but courageous movement into uncertainty with trust that meaning can still be found there. You cannot grow without risk. You cannot find God without stepping into the unknown. The world is full of people who want the promise of transformation, but not the process. They pray for new beginnings, but resist the disruption that newness requires. But if you are chosen, you do not have that luxury. God calls you not to stay where you are, but to build a bridge between what is and what could be. You are the meeting point between heaven's order and the earth's chaos. That means your life will never be simple. You will constantly be stretched between who you were and who you must become, between comfort and calling, between fear and faith. That's the burden of being chosen, but it's also the path to meaning. It's easy to misunderstand chaos. People think it's the enemy, but chaos is the birthplace of possibility. It's the raw material of creation. In the beginning, Scripture tells us the earth was formless and void, chaotic, and God spoke order into it. That pattern hasn't changed. Every time you face disorder in your life, loss, uncertainty, failure, you are standing in the same space where creation began. And if you speak truth there, if you act with integrity there, you participate in that same divine process of bringing light into darkness. That's what it means to bear God's image, not perfection, but participation in creation. When you are chosen, life will confront you with chaos intentionally. The storms are not punishments, they are invitations. They're the pressure that reveals what's real in you. You only know the strength of a structure when the wind hits it. You only know the truth of your faith when chaos shakes it. The chosen don't pray to avoid chaos. They pray for courage to face it without losing their soul, because each encounter with uncertainty gives you a chance to build something stronger, wiser, and truer. The balance between order and chaos isn't static. It's a dance, one that requires humility and alertness. You can't cling too tightly to what you know, but you also can't wander blindly into disorder. The chosen learn to hold order lightly and face chaos bravely. They understand that both are sacred, both are necessary. Order keeps you grounded, chaos keeps you alive. And when you integrate them, when you bring peace to the tension between the two, you become a vessel of transformation. That's the deep meaning of being chosen. To live as a creator within creation, to find meaning in the very space where others only see confusion. You are meant to take the raw uncertainty of life and shape it into something that reflects divine order, truth, beauty, goodness. That's not an easy task, but it's the only one worthy of your potential. Every time you choose truth over comfort, discipline over drift, faith over fear, you bring light into chaos. You continue the work that began at the dawn of time. So when the world feels unstable, when everything around you is shaking, remember this: you were never promised safety. You were promised significance. The chosen are not the ones who avoid chaos. They are the ones who learn to transform it. And through that transformation, they bring order not only to the world, but to their own souls. The final proof that you are chosen is not that you have been blessed with ease or abundance, but that you have been called to transformation, to the kind of change that demands courage, humility, and endurance. The sign of being chosen is not comfort, it's responsibility. It's the unmistakable awareness that your life is meant to serve something greater than your own desires. And that realization changes everything. You begin to see that the purpose of existence is not to avoid suffering, but to find meaning within it. Because meaning transforms suffering into strength, and strength into service. When God chooses someone, He doesn't remove the struggle, He redeems it. He turns the pain that once broke you into the foundation of wisdom and compassion. That is the path of transformation, the slow and sometimes brutal process of becoming someone who can carry light through darkness. It's not glamorous, it's not easy, but it's sacred. The chosen are not those spared from trials, but those who have learned how to use trials to refine their souls. They understand that growth always comes with cost, that to rise, something within must first die: pride, fear, self-pity, falsehood. Transformation begins the moment you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" It begins when you realize that your suffering can either destroy you or awaken you, and that the difference lies in how you respond. Every difficulty is a question from God. Will you stay bitter or will you become better? Will you retreat into resentment or will you use this as a doorway to strength? The chosen learn to say yes to that question again and again, even when it hurts. That's what makes them different. Not their perfection, but their persistence. Service grows out of that same soil. Once you have faced your own pain and found meaning in it, you can no longer live only for yourself. You begin to see that your gifts, your scars, your story, all of it were meant to serve others. Service is not charity, it's redemption in motion. It's the realization that your healing is incomplete until it helps someone else heal. To be chosen is to live for the benefit of others, to build something that outlives your name. You may never be recognized for it, but that doesn't matter, because service isn't about recognition. It's about alignment. It's about knowing that your work, however small, participates in something eternal. And this is where the greatest transformation occurs. Not in moments of revelation, but in the quiet, repetitive acts of obedience. The chosen person doesn't wait for applause. They wake up and do what must be done. They forgive when it's easier to hate. They speak truth when silence would protect them. They keep building when the world tells them to quit. That's how purpose is forged. Through consistent, meaningful action, even when no one is watching. You were never called to be safe. Safety dulls the spirit. You were called to be courageous, to live with conviction in a world that trades meaning for comfort. And courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act in spite of it. Every act of courage, no matter how small, pushes back against the darkness. It says to the chaos, "You will not have the final word." That is what it means to be chosen, to carry the light forward, even when the wind tries to extinguish it. So if you sense that you have been chosen, do not wait for ideal conditions. Begin now with what you have, where you are. Let your life become an offering of faith and responsibility, of vision and endurance. Let transformation take root, even if it comes through struggle, because in the end, that is what divine choice truly means. Not that you were selected for privilege, but that you were entrusted with purpose. You were chosen to rise, to serve, and to illuminate. You were chosen to show that even in a broken world, goodness can still be built, one act of faith at a time.